Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm DJ Sixsmith. Welcome to Sit Down. Yoonj Kim is here with us from MTV News. Yoonj, nice to meet you. How are you?
Nice to meet you too, DJ Sixsmith. I'm good. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
You got it. So you do a great job with your work at MTV News. And listen, it's a really important time right now. There has been a rise in violence against Asian Americans, which is
Mhm.
horrible. And it's a really nuanced conversation. It's not something that's new, but what's it been like just seeing everything the last month or two, given everything going on?
I mean, it's been simultaneously encouraging because of the response we're starting to get from the public and mainstream media outlets. But at the same time, it's truly tragic to see all of these attacks happening, especially against the elderly in our community, the most vulnerable and powerless, at least physically. So it's been a weird mix, but I think the zeitgeist is different from anything I've personally experienced as an Asian American in this country. And I attribute it to a combination of the coronavirus rhetoric from last year and just the fact that younger people are more socially attuned and civically engaged. So we have this interesting climate going on right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting how all that comes together. And it starts with the video of the elderly man being attacked in Oakland. And when you watch that video, it's just horrible to watch. And again, this is not the first time we've seen something like that. But what was your reaction when you first saw that video?
I mean, for me, it was like a gut punch because, you know, like it reminds me of my parents or my grandparents. And it's not like, and I'm sure this is something that other young Asians felt too watching it. Like, we don't really see ourselves in the media, and then like one of the few times that we do, it's this horrendous attack that's gone viral. So it was a very emotional few weeks when all these attacks started coming out, and they're still coming out across the country.
Yeah, I mean, you hear
It's,
stories all around the country of, friends just watching out for other friends or people sitting in front of people's houses. Like that's the point it's gotten to right now. So what is the craziest thing of all this? I mean, you mentioned the rhetoric with coronavirus, what's going on with Gen Z, the younger generation, but what really blows your mind the most about everything we're talking about right now?
I mean, there's a lot, but like you mentioned, the community that's been coming around, it's been really inspiring to watch. The fact that neighbors will go and sit in front of, their Asian neighbor's house to make sure that they're protected against hate crimes since the police can't be there 24/7, or maybe they don't want to call the police. And seeing allies rally against with the Asian community has been the most amazing. Um, because that's really where it starts. Even though the government and the federal government can sign all of these memorandums and put out these announcements, it's really not going to do much good if the local grassroots community isn't there to support. So that's been awesome.
And it brings up a lot of important things too. And you mentioned this in one of your commentary pieces, but who's telling the stories, right? There is no national network for Asian news. We have that for
No,
Black folks. We have plenty of white networks. So how can that become something that really changes the narrative, in your opinion?
it does a lot just to get the word out in the first place about Asian stories, like the networks you mentioned, BET and even Univision, Logo for the LGBTQ
Mhm.
community. They prioritize those group stories, and Asians don't have that yet, which is surprising. And I'm sure it'll change soon. But it goes a long way in normalizing Asian stories as well. It humanizes Asian Americans beyond like the two-dimensional characters or stereotypes that we might often see in the few movies and TV shows that are out there. And they are increasing, but it's important just to have that ecosystem, that media ecosystem in the first place.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. And also, it's just important just to understand the context of the situation from a really young age. So, for
Mhm.
us two growing up, it's like we had some of these conversations, but not to the same extent that people are having them now at a younger age. And we saw this with Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. So, what's most encouraging to you about the positives that are coming out of this? The conversations, the opportunity to learn for those people who maybe hadn't realized this was going on?
I think maybe the most relevant right now this month is the fact that this is happening during Black History Month. And a lot of activists have been pointing out that Asian Americans and Black Americans have been pitted against each other historically, because Asian Americans are the model minority for, the white patriarchy, the white supremacist system to excuse all of the oppression against Black Americans. And that's not true. This pitting these two minorities against each other, it's not true and it's not helpful. And it's been really encouraging to see that younger generations are attuned to this inequality. So instead of blaming blaming Black Americans, or getting racist about it, or calling for more law enforcement, they're being more mindful. Like, look, this is happening to us. And at the same time, we have to remember we can't point fingers at other groups, at other ethnic groups blanket, because that's just perpetuating the cycle. We have to look upwards towards the system that's actually perpetuating this, and that is white supremacy.
Yeah, and we have to understand how long that system's been in place, right? I know you mentioned in your piece, we just, when Reagan was in office, how much of what we're dealing with today started back then, and we're still working through that. So yeah, just calling it what it is super important. So as we move forward here, you have your platform. We've seen celebrities use their platforms, and people have the individual power as well. So what are you hoping to see as we go forward here with this conversation?
Well, it would be nice to see more non-Asian celebrities, join the public conversation. And there have been, Daniel Day Kim and Daniel Wu. They kind of started this on the celebrity side by putting out an award for the person who attacked the elderly Asian man in the video. Kamau Bell from CNN, he's piped in. AOC, from the politics side, has chimed in. But it would be great to see more of a wider diversity of celebrities voicing their support. And I feel like it's happening. It's slowly starting to happen as word continues to get out and people realize that selective anti-racism in a way is still racism. You can't just be vocal about one group. You have to be vocal about injustices against everyone else if you're truly an anti-racist.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been one of the big things that I've learned, right? We saw so many people with the aftermath of George Floyd, but the Asian American community is going through all that's going through, the Jewish community in this country, right? The Native American community. It's like, we can't just lump minorities into one group. And I feel like we do that a lot of the time, right?
Totally. And it's harmful because each experience is so different. But if you don't speak up for one group, we're not going to get to the same end goal that we all want by calling out racism against Black Americans. It has to be everybody. Otherwise, we're still in an unequal racist society.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, Yoonj, you're doing a great part in helping everybody understand what's going on. Thank you so much for the time. Nice to meet you, and would love to talk to you down the road again.
For sure. Thanks so much for giving me the space. It was great to talk to you too.